The day my sister totaled her car. She was 3 states away at a wedding. I know this because I have the photos, the timestamps, and the venue receipt with her name on it. What I didn't know, what none of us knew yet, was that by the time she landed back home, my parents had already decided I would be the one to pay for it. Let me back up. My name is Claire, and I am 31 years old. I work as a paralegal at a mid-size firm in Columbus, Ohio. I have my own apartment, my own car insurance, my own carefully maintained credit score that I built from nothing after college. I say all of this not to brag, but because you need to understand what was at stake when my family decided to blow it all up on a Tuesday afternoon in March. My sister Danielle is 26. She has always been the one my parents orbited around. Not because she was cruel. Exactly. But because she had this quality, this magnetic, effortless energy that made everyone in the room turn toward her, like she was the sun. My parents were no different. When Danielle wanted something, the household reorganized itself to provide it. When I wanted something, I was told to be patient, to be practical, to understand that timing wasn't right. I told myself for years that I had made peace with this. I hadn't. Danielle had been driving our mother's car, a 2021 Honda CR-V that my parents had paid off 2 years early because her own lease had ended, and she was in between vehicles. This was, of course, temporary. Everything with Danielle was temporary, in a way that somehow became permanent. She'd been borrowing that car for 4 months. The accident happened on a Tuesday. Danielle was not in it. I need to be very precise here, because the sequence of events matters enormously. At approximately 2:15 inches the afternoon, my mother's Honda CR-V was involved in a collision at the intersection of Morse Road and Carl Road. The driver ran a red light and struck a delivery truck broadside. The airbags deployed. The front end was destroyed. The driver fled on foot and was gone before anyone could get a good look. W 2:40, my father had called me. There's been an accident, he said. And his voice had that particular flatness I had learned over 30 years to be afraid of. Not grief, not panic. Flatness. The voice he used when he had already made a decision and was now informing you of it. What happened? Is everyone okay? The car is totaled. The police are there now. There's a hit-and-run situation. I waited. We need you to go down there, he said, and we need you to tell them you were driving. I actually laughed. It came out of me before I could stop it, a short, too sharp sound that had nothing funny in it. Dad, Claire, listen to me very carefully. I wasn't driving that car. I haven't driven that car in 6 months. I don't even have a key to that car. We know that, but here's the situation. He exhaled slowly. The driver was Danielle's friend, Marcus. He borrowed the car without asking. Danielle doesn't know. If this comes back to Danielle, if it looks like she was letting people drive Mom's car without permission, they could go after her insurance. They could void the coverage. And Danielle is already in a fragile place right now financially. She just got that promotion. She cannot have this on her record. Then tell the truth, I said. Marcus drove without permission. That's not Danielle's fault. It's not that simple. His voice dropped. Marcus has a suspended license. He was driving on a suspended license. If Danielle knew, did she know silence? Dad, did Danielle know Marcus had a suspended license? That is not the point right now. That is absolutely the point. Claire. And here it came. The turn. I had heard this voice my entire life. This particular combination of exhaustion and disappointment, as though I was the one creating the problem by refusing to dissolve into it. You're our daughter. You're strong. You've always handled things. Your sister is not built the way you are. You know this. We all know this. I stood in my kitchen with my phone pressed to my ear, and I looked out the window at the parking lot of my apartment complex, and I thought about every single time I had been told that being capable was the same as being expendable. If I say I was driving a car I wasn't in, I said carefully, and there are witnesses, and cameras, and a police report. We've thought about that. You can say you left the scene. You were shaken up. You walked to a nearby store. You didn't realize you were supposed to stay? That's a hit and run. A minor one. First offense. Your record is clean. You'd get a fine. Maybe community service. Your firm does pro bono work. You know people. It would be handled. I want to tell you that I hung up immediately. I want to tell you that I said something clear and final and walked away from the conversation with my dignity intact. I didn't. I stood there for another 4 minutes while my father explained to me, in patient and reasonable tones, exactly how my life was less important than my sister's, how my stability was a resource to be spent, how my clean record was not something I had built through careful choices, but rather a reserve that the family could draw on in an emergency. I said I needed to think about it. I didn't go to the scene. I didn't call the police. I sat in my apartment for 2 hours, and I thought about every favor I had quietly absorbed over the years. Every birthday that had a smaller cake. Every conversation where I had been the practical one, so Danielle could be the dreamed one. Then my mother called. My mother is softer than my father, and that has always made her more dangerous. Because her softness looks like love, even when it isn't. She cried a little. She talked about how hard Danielle had worked for this promotion. She mentioned, gently, that Danielle had always looked up to me. She said, and I remember this exactly, you've always been the one we could count on. Sweetheart, that's not a small thing. That's everything. It is a particular kind of violence. Being told that your willingness to be sacrificed is the thing that makes you valuable. I told my mother I would think about it. She took that as a yes. By the next morning, my father had spoken to the insurance company and given them my name as the driver. He had done this without my consent, without my knowledge, without even a phone call to warn me. I found out when an insurance investigator called my cell phone and asked me to walk them through what had happened. I panicked. I said I'd call them back. I didn't. 48 hours after the accident, I received a certified letter informing me that I was being identified as the driver in a hit-and-run incident. My father had submitted a written statement. My name, my supposed account of the events, a story I had never agreed to tell. I called him immediately. You already filed it. I said, I had to move quickly. These things have windows. You filed a false statement with an insurance company using my name. Claire, that is, insurance fraud. You understand that? Right. That is a felony. It will never get that far. Just cooperate with the investigator. Give them your statement. And this is over in 2 weeks. And if I don't? Another pause. Longer this time. And when my father spoke again, the softness was gone entirely. There was nothing left but the flat, structural fact of what he was saying. Your mother and I have been helping with your student loans for the last 3 years. Not because we had to, because we chose to. That choice can be revisited. I went very still. We also co-signed your apartment lease. We could raise concerns with your landlord about your reliability. And I've had lunch with Patrick Harmon twice this year. Patrick Harmon was the senior partner at my firm. My father had known him through a city council connection for years. I would hate for any of this confusion to reach him. He was not threatening me. That's the thing about language. In moments like this, he was simply listing facts, existing relationships, financial realities. He was describing the shape of my life as though it were a spreadsheet, and showing me quietly which cells he controlled. Think about it, he said, and hung up. I sat on the floor of my kitchen for a long time. Here is what nobody tells you about families like mine. The control doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with cruelty. It arrives with helpfulness. It arrives as co-signed leases and covered loan payments and lunch with your boss, and it feels like love until the day they need something. And then you understand that every favor was a deposit into an account they always intended to collect. I had been accumulating debt my entire life, and I hadn't even known it. I did not sleep that night. I made a list, an actual physical list. On paper, with a pen of every piece of leverage my parents thought they had. The loans, the lease, the Patrick Harmon connection, and across from each item, I wrote what I actually knew. The loans were in my name. My parents had been making voluntary payments. They could stop. But the debt was legally mine. It would not become theirs. The lease, my parents were co-signers. But I had never missed a payment. Never had a complaint filed. Never given my landlord any reason to question me. A co-signer raising concerns without documented cause had very limited power. Patrick Harmon, my work record at the firm was spotless. I had 3 performance reviews in a row rated exceptional. Whatever my father said to Patrick Harmon over lunch, he would be saying it to a man who had watched me work for 6 years. Each item, examined clearly, was smaller than it had felt in the dark. But here is the thing. I had not yet thought about the thing that changed everything. 3 months before this happened, I had started using a dashcam in my car. Not for any dramatic reason. I had read an article about insurance fraud. Ironically, and I had bought a small front-facing camera that automatically uploaded footage to a cloud account every 24 hours. I had installed it, tested it, and then largely forgotten about it. My car had been parked in my apartment complex's lot on the afternoon of the accident. My dashcam had a timestamp. I pulled up the app that night, and I looked at the footage my car. In my parking spot, motionless. From 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the day of the accident. The camera recorded continuously. The timestamp was embedded in the footage itself, generated by the app's servers. Not by me. It was not something I could have altered. The metadata showed the upload times, the GPS coordinates of my parked vehicle, and an unbroken 4-hour record of my car going absolutely nowhere. I also had my work calendar for that day. I had been in a deposition prep meeting from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. with 4 attorneys and a court reporter present. I had submitted a timesheet. There were emails. There was a signed attendance log. I had not been on Morse Road. I had not been near that intersection. I had an alibi that existed entirely independent of anything I said or did. It had simply been accumulating in servers and calendars and timestamp metadata while my father wrote my name on a false statement. I called a lawyer that night. Not someone from my firm, someone outside. Someone with no relationship to my father or Patrick Harmon. A woman I found through a bar association referral, who specialized in civil and insurance matters. Her name was Andrea. And when I laid out the situation, she was quiet for a moment and then said, "They filed a statement in your name without your consent." Yes. Do you have documentation that you were not at the scene? I have dashcam footage, time-stamped and uploaded to a third-party server. I have a work attendance log. I have emails from that afternoon. Another pause. "Claire," she said, "I want you to understand something. Your parents did not do you a favor. They committed a felony and put your name on it. You are not protecting your family by going along with this. You are becoming a co-conspirator after the fact." I knew this, but hearing it from someone outside the gravity field of my family made it real in a way it hadn't been before. "What do?" I asked. "You contact the insurance investigator," she said. "You tell them you did not give anyone permission to use your name. You provide your documentation, and you let the process work." I didn't sleep. But by the time the sun came up, I knew what I was going to do. I called the insurance investigator the next morning. I told her that I had been listed as the driver without my knowledge or consent, that I had documentation placing me elsewhere at the time of the accident, and that I would be providing that documentation in full. She was professional, careful, and very quiet, in a way that told me she had seen something like this before. I sent her everything. The dashcam footage, 240 minutes of my parked car. Timestamps intact. GPS coordinates logged. The deposition prep attendance sheet. 12 emails sent and received between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. from my work computer. A receipt from a coffee shop 2 blocks from my office at 8:47 a.m. I did not call my parents. I did not warn them. I want to be honest about that. I had the opportunity to call my father and say, I am about to do this. Do you want to reconsider? Do you want to correct this before it becomes something that cannot be uncorrected? I chose not to. I am not proud of it, and I am not ashamed of it. I had spent 31 years being the person who absorbed the consequences of other people's choices, and I was finished. The insurance company's fraud investigation unit contacted my parents 4 days later. I know this because my mother called me, and this time, she was not soft. This time, she was something I had never heard from her before, frightened in a way that had stripped away all the gentle packaging and left only the raw, exposed fact of what they had done. They're saying fraud, she said. They're saying criminal referral? I know. I said, Claire, how could you, Mom? I said it quietly, without anger, which I think surprised her. You put my name on a false statement. You threatened my job and my home to make me go along with it. I have documentation that I was not there. What did you think was going to happen? She cried. I listened. I did not apologize. The investigation moved faster than I expected. The insurance company referred the matter to the county prosecutor's office. Marcus Danielle's friend with the suspended license was identified through a witness who had seen him walking away from the scene and recognized him from the neighborhood. He had, it turned out, not been nearly as invisible as he thought. My father was charged with filing a false insurance claim and filing a false police report. My mother was charged as a co-conspirator. Both charges were felonies. Danielle called me from the airport. She had landed from a work trip to find 17 missed calls. What happened? She said. And her voice was small in a way I had never heard before. The magnetism was gone. She sounded like a person. Marcus drove Mom's car without permission. I said. He hit someone and fled. Dad tried to put it on me. The silence that followed was long enough that I checked to see if the call had dropped. He tried to put it on you, she repeated. Yes? Claire, I know you didn't ask him to. I know that. I didn't even know Marcus had borrowed. I would never have. She stopped. Started again. I'm so sorry. And here is the thing. I believed her. I had spent so long being resentful of Danielle for being the favorite, for absorbing resources and attention and patience that I thought should have been shared, that I had stopped seeing her as a separate person from my parents' choices. She had been the beneficiary of their favoritism. She had not been its architect. I know, I said again. I know you are. My parents were not sentenced to prison. Their attorneys negotiated a plea agreement restitution to the insurance company, a substantial fine, 2 years of probation, and a requirement to complete a fraud education program that I privately found extremely funny. My father lost his city council connections almost immediately. Patrick Harmon called me the week after the charges were announced. Not to discuss what he'd heard at lunch, but to make sure I was okay and to offer me an additional week of paid leave. My credit score was unaffected. My lease was unaffected. My loan payments, which my parents had stopped as promised, I now paid myself. And it was tight for a few months. But tight is manageable. Tight is just math. The thing nobody tells you about standing up to your family is that it doesn't feel triumphant. It doesn't feel like the end of a movie. It feels like standing in a room where all the furniture has been removed, and you are learning, for the first time, exactly how large the space actually is. It is disorienting. It is also, underneath that, a relief so profound, you almost can't name it. I still talk to Daniel. We are careful with each other in a way we never were before. Which sounds like a loss, but is actually something closer to respect. She knows now what her position in the family cost me. I know now that she was not the enemy. We are figuring out, slowly, who we are to each other, when nobody is using one of us as a counterweight for the other. My parents and I do not have a relationship right now. That may change. It may not. I am no longer organizing my life around managing their feelings about it. I keep the dash cam. I upgraded it. Actually, better resolution. Longer storage. Automatic backup to 2 separate cloud servers. Some people at work think it's paranoid. I think it's the same thing I've always done. I document carefully. I keep my records clean. And I make sure that when someone tries to rewrite what happened, the timestamps tell the truth. They always do.